Now, who are the Hadza people, otherwise known as Hadzabe? Now, the Hadzabe people, according to my little studies in anthropology, are a minority. In fact, I think they are the tiniest people group in all of Africa. Now, the Hadza people are said to be closely related to the Khoikhoi and the San people of Southern Africa. And I'm sure if you watch this movie, the ghost must be crazy. We have found a group of people who were walking around in pants and loincloths, going around with bow and arrow hunting animals. Now, the Hadzabe are said to be related to these people. And in fact, the Hadza people are believed to be one of the oldest human people group this planet, together with Khoikhoi, the San people, and the Pygmy people. The Pygmies are also known as the Twa or the Batwa. Now, the Hadza people have a fascinating culture and history that has survived thousands of years, while other human people group had evolved and adapted to more advanced ways of life. The Hadza people were isolated for thousands of years and were not contacted by other people, even though they were surrounded by many people groups and civilizations. In fact, there are less than 1,000 Hadza people. Now, the Hadza people have unique culture, which I will break into various segments. Now, segment one of the unique Hadza culture. Number one, the Hadza people are egalitarian. That is, they don't have hierarchy and they don't have a strict system of governance in their society. Decisions are made through group concession and group discussion. And when there's a conflict, the conflict is usually resolved simply by one person or the other people in the group who are not favored or who feel like they're not comfortable with the whole situation. They would move to another group, another band, and join that band and move on with their life. And that's how their society has been functioning for thousands of years. Egalitarian, no king, no prince, no priest, no leader. Everyone just talks at it in a kind of democratic and egalitarian way. And that sounds a little bit like communism. Sorry, I'm not Karl Marx. Now, what is their economic system, you might wonder? Unlike the other African groups that still maintain their traditional ways of life, such as the Maasai people or the Fulani, where their culture is heavily based on cattle herding and maybe other form of livestock herding like sheep and goats and stuff like that. The Hadza people, however, are not herders. They are one of the few remaining hunter-gatherer society on earth. And how do they survive? They survive by hunting animals. The Hadza people don't really have a strict rule on what animal could be eaten or what could not be eaten. Now, the men mostly hunt animals and gather honey, while the women gather fruits, roots, and then baobab, especially the baobab fruits. They gather those fruits and nuts and berries and roots and leaves. And that's what they survive on. They don't farm. Now, back to anthropology. Humanity is usually grouped into three major categories. Now, depending on whoever you ask, there may be more categories than these, but these are the three categories that most anthropologists would agree on. The first one is the hunter-gatherer, and this is the most basic level of human society. Even with animals, have to hunt and gather. Now, most human societies at the beginning were, not most, all human societies at the beginning were hunter-gatherers. So like the Hadza people, like I also mentioned, the San people are also another hunter-gatherer in Africa. The Batwa or the Pygmies are also another hunter-gatherer in Africa. And then we also have the Khoikhoi. Although the Khoikhoi are no longer hunter-gatherers, but some thousands of years ago, they also became pastoralists, began herding cattle. So just like their Bantu neighbors and the Nilotic people of East Africa, like the Maasai, they keep cattle. Now, for the Hadza people, they are still among the hunter-gatherer people. As strange as it may sound, we in West Africa, we eat mostly sheep and horses. Sorry, sheep and cows. Yes, few Africans actually eat horses. I've eaten a donkey meat before, to be honest. I've eaten donkey and camel. After these nomadic herders, we have the settled agrarians. Now, the settled farmers can either be rearing animals or be planting crops. Most settled farmers usually farm crops and keep less more of animals. Now, for the Hadza people, they are still stuck to this level of nomadic foragers, their mode of livelihood. So, for example, I gave example in the past segment about how people might be nomadic foragers. And also that's the same way some people can be living nomadically or sedentary. Now, for example, in West Africa, the Fulani are one of the most famous nomadic people groups. And there are many of them till today who do not have a permanent residence. They just roam across every country in Africa or West Africa to be specific. Their houses are temporal, so they can be made from branches and twigs and leaves, not elaborate structure like many West Africans have, like the Hausa, the Mandinka, the Wolof, the Ashanti, the Jola people. Now, these guys just build temporary structure and they move about depending on how their food source move. The season as well. If it's dry season or wet season, they'll go to wherever sources they can find their food and their water, most especially. Pertaining to their language, as you already know, the Hadzabe people are kind of like the oldest or one of the oldest people group on the planet. Now, their language is also one of the most oldest human language, and it is in fact classified as a click language. Now, I don't know, back to the film, because must be crazy. If you watch their movie, you would have heard the language sounding something like. So that's how their language sounds like. They have those kind of consonant or those kind of sounds in the language, very common. And this is quite similar to many other languages that have the click sound in Southern Africa, particularly the San, the Khoikhoi, and the Xhosa, even though it's spelled with a Xhosa, but it's pronounced Xhosa, Xhosa language. So I think Zulu and some other languages also have that sound in it. So, but Xhosa, to be specific, has a lot of the click sound. Not just that, this their click language is also an oral language. Now, even though many languages in Africa were originally oral, except for a few who developed complex writing systems like those of the Northeast Africa, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Sudan, ancient Nubian scripts, ancient Egyptian scripts, Tifinagh, and all that script that developed in other parts of Africa. And even though European colonizers in the modern era introduced the Latin script to be used in many other African societies, the Hadzabe people have not developed any form of writing script for the Hadzane language. I don't even know if they have cave art. Like, I don't know if they have wall painting on caves. And because I believe wall painting is the earliest and the most basic form of literacy. So most times languages evolve from paintings to glyphics to um, ideograms and then to syllabaries and then alphabets. But the Hazani language has not been written in any form. Now, even though, like I said earlier, they are surrounded by many other African groups, these people, the Hadzabe, have resisted to change. Even they are one of the few people groups in Africa who have not embraced Christianity. They still practice their animism and ancestral veneration, and they don't really care about the westernized kind of society. They don't use smartphones, they don't use computers, especially those who still live the traditional life. Although a few of them has left the Hadzabe community and have maybe established themselves in places like Dar es Salaam or Maputo or Zanzibar, the majority of them who still live the traditional life do not embrace any form of modernization and technology or change at all. They are as traditional as possible. So we've come to the end of this video on the Hadzabe people. And I'll be making another video on nudity in Africa. Stay tuned.